Let's talk about offensive drone micro in FTL, and we might as well start with some general tips for Zoltan C since I'm going to be using it in a moment. First thing you need to do is get this Zoltan out of shields. That's a really bad place for them. It doesn't help you use your power very effectively. So the simplest place to put them is just straight into weapons. Another option is doors, with the idea of better boarding defense. What I think is probably optimal, is to stick them right here in drones. And that way you can power everything you need to from the start of the fight, but you can also duck into doors very quickly in boarding events should you need to. Now the other thing I like to do on this ship is vent the clone bay from the start, like so, and then shut those airlocks and wait for oxygen to refill up to 90%. So this would be a setup that I would jump to the next beacon with, ideally. And the reason for doing that is that you can then vent quickly enough through these doors into the clone bay to kick out 3 boarders who jump directly into there before they can destroy it. Now if you forget to do this or you don't want to bother, you can still kick them out by venting from all 6 airlocks. They will leave in time. In both cases you do need your oxygen to be switched off from the start, however. Anyway, that's just a couple of tips about getting ready to jump with this ship. And let's go. So the point of all this stuff is to have all your manning bonuses and also be able to power everything you need to from the start. We don't need shields at the start because we have a Zoltan Shield. And also nothing is immediately shooting at us in this case. And we want to get the beam drone positioned as soon as possible. And then I power it off so that it's ready to shoot. Turn it on. One little trick to know here, by the way, doesn't matter in this case, is if you turn the beam drone off when it's already started firing its beam, it will actually finish the whole swipe. So if this was going from engines, say, into shields, it would continue and hit shields. You see it's still firing even though it's not powered. That can sometimes be useful to know. And we set up the beam drone again. And now I don't need to use my battery here. I have plenty of power. I want to delay using the battery as long as possible because when it runs out, the fight can become more awkward. So we get the dodge, put the power back in the beam drone. And you can even micro this between shots if you want to. So we can keep the beam drone moving. Get a dodge, power back in the beam drone. And it will keep drifting, even when it's depowered, as you can see there. And at this point we do want to have our shields ready. Generally I don't like to put backup battery power into the shields, but I'll do it for now, it's fine. And we could actually move the Zoltan. So we're still going to get hit here. Oh, I'm not sure I want to lose my beam drone. Just a little bit of power micro trying to reduce the chance to get shot down. You can also move this Zoltan, by the way. You don't have to have your crew in static positions. And notice that we got through the fight before our backup battery runs out. If your backup battery is running out, you can always pull crew into systems that you need. So shields and weapons and drones, you do have enough power. You can have everything online at the same time. So here's a fun thing about teaching stuff. It can actually help you learn better yourself. So something I just noticed from recording that fight is that I couldn't get real power into shields when I needed to use my backup battery. So you see here, we only have 2 real power. We can put it in shields, but then that means battery power is being used on the weapon. And really the places I'd like to use battery are the engines and the drone. You know, imagine that the burst laser hit the battery, then suddenly we could lose power in one of these systems, like the weapon, that's not so good. Lose all the charge, or the shields, that could be really bad. So what you could do instead is when you're about to need your battery, or just after you activate your battery, you could move the Zoltan, and then you could have power in shields temporarily while you're doing that, and then just swap it out like so. And now you see our shields have real power, our weapon has Zoltan power, and we're using battery and engines, and then we would turn on the drone. We still have 3. Now let's take a look at that same fight with the Engi A. A mistake that people often make with this ship is just to target the ion blast at shields and let the combat drone fly. And the problem with this is you don't have any targeted damage. The combat drone will just shoot random rooms, and all this time you're getting shot at. Okay, we got some lucky dodges there. This isn't great. Now you could improve it by auto-firing on weapons instead. That does help a bit. At least you'll get some suppression of the weapons with your ion. But we can do better than this. In most cases, the correct tactic with Engi A in the early game is to position the drone and have it break a shield barrier for your ion. So you break the shield, ion comes into weapons, and you're suppressing their damage. And now we've ionized both their weapons, and we can let the drone go a bit. So we could retarget to shields if we want. Let the drone fly. Retarget to weapons. One other thing that's useful to know is that anti-combat drones can't hurt your drone if you power it off before the ion hits it. It won't take ion damage if it is depowered. And then you have 7 seconds before this thing can fire again. So these are really quite a non-issue if you micro carefully. Sometimes you'll need to time your drone movements if you want to optimize the number of shots you get. But it's fairly simple, at least with pause. You can use the same principle to block ion weapons with your drone. Now this isn't something you can really force to happen, it's more that you can take advantage of it opportunistically. Just wait for the drone to drift in front of the ion weapon and then turn it off. It may never do it, of course. But then we do that. I think, yeah, that's good enough. And now this enemy can never hurt us. So for example, we could start going for a crew kill, we could train our weapons, whatever. Train evasion. Of course, it's not just limited to ion weapons, you can also sacrifice a drone to block a damaging shot if you want to. And again, it's not something you can force, you just have to look for the opportunity. Like so. Think that'll be good enough? It happens more often than you might think. You just have to keep your eyes open for it. so now we've seen some examples of drone micro, let's go into the details of how it actually works. You might think that the best time to depower your drone would be right when it stops completely. Like wait for it to go to a halt and light up, like so. And then depower it and you think, oh, maybe it's going to fire immediately. It won't, it's going to reposition. And then you might think, well, I'll get as close as possible like this till it's almost stopped and then turn it off. That's okay, that does work, but it will keep flying out of screen. And then it takes a moment to reposition itself. So if you want to optimize, then you need to judge when it's going to stop, and you can look at where it's traveling to and also how it's turning to get an idea of where it's heading for. And then depower it so it drifts into position like that. Then it's going to fire almost immediately, like so. It's not an exact science. And one thing you might think is, let's say you come up a bit short and you want to nudge it further. Oh, well, I'll just power it on for a moment, maybe even wait for it to kind of lose its momentum. Power it on just for like a frame or two and have it keep moving. But it actually gets a boost of momentum when you repower it, so it has again drifted. No big deal, but if you're looking to optimize, try to get it to drift into position. And if you really want to be silly, then you can actually use this to shoot down enemy defensive drones, which could occasionally be useful. It is pretty difficult to do. The hitbox on the drones is a lot smaller than the actual sprite, and it's hard to know exactly where your combat drone is going to fire, but it can be done. So that's it really. Maybe have a play with microing your drones and see what you can pull off.